This is AyAyAyAi, where we have our favorite guest, Bassel, with us. I got my Lucky. Lucky has given me the what is it called? The green light to record it on a non-weekday, right? This is a weekend. So thank you, Lucky, for that, time and give me the time of the day. Um, this is just an amazing conversations we're about to jump into. So without further ado, Lucky, ay, what's up?
AyAyAyAi. Good morning, all. Yeah, it is a weekend, a little bit different from our different production times, but today we have Bassel. Thank you, Bassel. We have an AI, or the honor of having an AI expert, subject matter expert, technologist, developer, the man. He's one of the guys that you wish you had, or that you want to have on your side, and he's always knows which way. When it comes to AI, he knows everything about AI. And today we're going to be talking about large language models. We're going to be talking about hardware. We're going to talk about things like people, process, technology. We're going to talk about how veterans can be helped, how things can, does AI, how does it affect us? But without going into what we're going to cover, thank you, Bassel, for being here today. Welcome.
Lucky Asif, you guys humble me too much. You're very kind, and your effusive praise. I feel very honored to be here with you. I think we're kindred spirits. Think of the same way, and we'd like to find the different solutions for different problems. Yeah, so a lot has changed since the last time I was on a podcast with you. I think when was it? Was it last October or September when we had the podcast? Something like that, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I think the topic was back then, like, how fast things are changing. And I think you guys were saying, we're looking at things in 2-year cycles. Every 2 to 3 years, something big happened. I think at that point, I pointed out, hey, remember when the transformer architecture came out? Attention was all that you need, and then took a few years, and then all of a sudden we start seeing changes. Well, I guess since then, Chat GPT jumped into the scene and captured the imagination of the world. We can't stop hearing about it, right?
Wow.
And really, it's based on the transformer architecture, but that's something very cool. They created interface instead of doing something in the background where you can go back and forth that we all know about, and it has that component of the human reinforcement feedback loop in order to say, hey, it's good content, bad content. And ever since that day, I think everybody, when I say everybody, I mean whether it's a pizza shop or whether it's a mega company or whether it's a government, whether it's in the US, whether it's overseas, whether it's veterans, everybody wants to jump on it and figure out. And I think what we're seeing right now, there's a lot of excitement, and there's also a lot of concerns as well, because as we mentioned also before, that there could be consequences to this, because with great, like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? That we really need to know how these things are affecting people and companies, and how do we really put smart guardrails, smart ways of legislation, and get everybody also on the bandwagon, so we're not stifling creativity and innovation.
Yeah, I think the theme here continues. Always talk about movies in every episode. Because,
Correct.
we either talk about Star Trek or a movie or a TV show or some sort every episode. And yeah, I think you're capturing all of it very well, because if before we started the recording, we talked about the fact that people will be the one that adopts whatever AI machine learning is. It's not that AI machine learning will force people to adopt anything, right? If people don't adopt it, AI machine learning is as good as a tool that you never use, right? It could be a gold gem, or it could be just a coal, whatever the case is. You have to know how to use it. You have to figure out how fast you want to use it and what are the use case for it. So people first, process will follow, and technology will come eventually. But how fast you get about that technology will depend on how fast you go with the process and what sort of process you put in place. And then again, what sort of people are behind that process will ultimately dictate what sort of technology you have. So it's a paradox that we live within our brain continuously. It's how the humans operate, right? You always have to have both sides of the equation and balance it out, so that way everybody can benefit from it. So AI machine learning is no different. AI machine learning, again, to me, is a process. It's not so much of a technology,
Yeah.
but it's the people that will develop that process and give birth to the technology. Um, so, Lucky, how do I frame this question, and how do we get this conversation going? Because I think there's so much to talk about when it comes to technology, but let's start with people. What do you think?
Well, the last time we talked, and it's part of our lost archives. A few of our recordings that we could never find that got corrupt, and so we lost our fantastic conversation with Bassel. But the thing is this is when we talked last, what we found is that we were talking about how is it AI, and we're talking about how AI is going to change and what is it going to turn into, and we're trying to figure out what the future is. But again, the future sometimes sometimes you want to predict, but then the future just says, all right, this is what it's going to be. In large language models, generative AI, from the last time we talked, from January, I want to start December, January of this last year, boom, exploded. And AI is now, it became mainstream with generative AI and, art, stable diffusion. And then GPT-3 came in, and all of a sudden, everybody, like you said, now has more connection with AI, where before it was still a little bit, we were trying to figure out, okay, what type of processes, individual processes can AI resolve, and how can AI help us? And where is AI now? We were talking about phones and how AI helps us make better decisions. But the reality is this now, today, where we're at now, AI is on knocking on everyone's door, whether it, like, say for example, if I'm at work, and I'll give you the example, AI now, generative large language models are being requested left and right. They're fantastic. They help you. Everybody knows it, but there's how many models out there are there that are large language models, and that's where we're at now. The layman, the person out there that uses AI now is interested. They've used it at home now. They've seen it work, and now they want to apply it. And how do we apply it? There's places where you can apply it to to healthcare, medical research. People, doctors, they're interested in it. But where are the caps? Right now we don't know. Like right now, the people now are driving it. Of course,
Mhm.
the people have the thirst for it now, and now they're driving for. I want this new widget, but the process. How do we make this safe? How do we make this? How is it regulated? I think that's where we're at now. And so, Bassel, where do you think? I mean, you tell me. That typically, people tend to drive technology, and then the process. So we're kind of like you said, we're in that one space. People, process, technology. Where? How do we find our way?
Really great question, Lucky. And I just want to go back just to the first part that Asif mentioned about people. And we all know this, faster alone, further together. So I can do some things on my own and build some proof of concept, which I've been doing, and I can do them very fast. But I also have to work with what my company is ready to do or what my agency is ready to do, and they're not ready to do all of that yet, and for good reasons, obviously. So that's so I would say people who are more tech oriented, yes, you should experiment, but be very careful in terms of thinking about deploying things in production or using live data and information, because there are privacy concerns. I mean, you mentioned before the podcast started, Copilot. Well, you know what? There have been lawsuits because sometimes you get code from somebody else that's trademark and patented that you don't realize, or you go into ChatGPT and copy something and maybe somebody else's content. It's a great tool to use and brainstorm and things like that, but you better be very careful in terms of how to use it. So that's really one point we really need to understand. I think the other point, in terms of it's very critical, like kind of like when we had consortiums for different things, like we have NIST for security and things like that. There is, NIST for AI. Like, how do we manage these things if we don't have something that we've put together companies can start taking these regulations that are published or frameworks that are published and tailor make them for their individual use. Same thing with the government agencies. For instance, Department of Defense, we have data strategy. How do you go about data? How do we exchange data? What do we mean by we say data quality? What are the mechanisms in place? So all these things need to start working together, and I think it's critical to have also legislation and governance within those, because we're talking about real major privacy concerns. If I come in from my company and I grab sensitive client information and drop it in there, guess what? The model is going to be trained on it, and now it's available for everybody. So that's really not what we want to do. So there are different parts that we have to look at. I don't know if I did a really good job answering the question, but maybe Asif and Lucky, you can help me reformulate if I need to focus on one specific area.
Well, that idea that you have to understand your risk, assess those risks, and manage those risks, right? Look, say for example, one example of somebody who lost some of their probably IP information to ChatGPT is a big Apple competitor. Not dropping any name, but it's a big Apple competitor. Literally, the source code is not available, but has been trained to ChatGPT, right? Not a good move. That's a huge risk. That's a risk that they cannot even go back and say, "Hey, give me back that IP information that you have," right? And look, it's the people that are driving the cause, people that are doing the risk assessment, people that are pushing IP information into the ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not asking for that, right? There's no prompt in ChatGPT like, give me your IP information, right? It's the people. Now, people have to do the risk assessment, people have to do the risk management. Now, people's inability to connect the dots is what's causing all the issues that I am trying to get into, right? Ultimately, it's the people that cause the cybersecurity issues, right? Ultimately, it's the people that it gives away information on ChatGPT. But when you talk about risk management and you start seeing governance, risk, and compliance, it's the people that will have to understand how those risks and how it violates the compliance and what sort of governance are in place, so that way those risks can be minimized, if not mitigated completely, right? So people's inability to grasp what the hidden layer is and how that hidden layer of AI machine learning works, I think is a huge loss in knowledge gap, right? Because once you're able to put that knowledge gap together, one concern you take right off the bat off the table is that the fear, right? You're no longer approaching machine learning with fear, rather than with the fact that acceptance is all you have to think of when it comes to machine learning, is because your brain's ability to have attention is very limited. But for a machine learning's ability to have that attention, it's far more I'm not going to call it superior. Let's just call it lengthier. And that's important. That's what we need. That's how we augment our brain. So as a people, as a person, if you understand the hidden layer, if you understand and you have trained on that nodes that connects all the inputs to the output, that business logic, that what goes in and what comes out, there's a hidden layer in the middle. If you understand that as a people, you will embrace machine learning faster and adopt it faster. And that, I think, is the people part of it before you give birth to a process. Because if you give birth to a process right now with people's inability to understand the hidden layer, that black box, that information that keeps you at ease to say, if you don't do things randomly but rather intentionally, you'll be just fine with AI machine learning.
Mm-hmm. It's that whole concept of what's behind the curtain. People just, in some cases, they're okay with blissful ignorance. I don't care what's behind the curtain as long as it works. But for most, that's not a good feeling. And there's a place where we still have to get to what's safe. Everybody's fighting to be able to develop something first right now. But is it are we going there first, or are we going there smart? How fast are we getting these AI technologies? I know we're getting a lot of we lost Bassel.
Oh, okay. Device not connected. Add to stream. Let's see. He's able. Oh, there he is. He's able to jump back in.
Okay.
Back in. Well,
sorry about that.
For me, technical How do you
technical
show if you don't
difficulties.
have technical difficulties?
Yeah. No worries. I actually lost my train of thought. So we'll just say 3, 2, 1. We'll start over.
Right.
When it comes to technologies and when it comes to AI, there's still people are ready to jump into large language models head first. It just seems like it's safe, and that's where we have to be able to protect people now. For example, this is the thing is, the people that are connected to large language models, they know that it's just not just Chat GPT. There's more than just Chat GPT, and there's other models, other large language models, natural language processing that gets people, what they want, but they just see Chat GPT. But the reality is there's so many more. And then how interoperable are these neural networks? We talked about it a little bit before, but the data from one now can be fed to another. So now you don't have to have maybe the hardware that's driving these large networks like ChatGPT. I see if you like to be able to talk about hardware. What are the realities of the hardware? Where are we? And we know that it takes to power an AI network. It takes NVIDIA, the A100s, these large devices, these interfaces that, I think ChatGPT's claimed over 10,000 of these different boards. That's a large footprint for power. We appreciate the information, but what does it take to get to that point? The power, the chips, and then the software. But we just want to enjoy the output. The big picture in hardware. I mean, Asif, what do you think as far as, when it comes to hardware? There's a big picture, there's a big footprint there that people don't really know is there, other than the risk. There's a risk in information, and then there's a risk in what does it take to get to that point, that information.
Yeah. The hardware piece, and this hardware piece is to me like, look, you can't have everything without paying the cost, right?
Mhm.
And I can go down from very high level to very niche level, right? Because everything has a cost. Your privacy has a cost.
Mhm.
We can talk about that. And your hardware has a cost. And what is the hardware? The rare earth elements that you have to extract from the ground and put that into a system and build your semiconductor chips and have those semiconductor chips being shipped around the world, especially from Taiwan or something like that, to come to your shore and then have it being put into your system. And Apple products is notorious for being produced in 30 some different countries, right? So by the time you get your Apple product in your hand, it has traveled the globe, right? There's a cost behind that. So when your phone costs $1,100, well, yes, part of that $1,100 is paying labor cost for somebody who lives probably in Vietnam, right? So there's a whole lot associated with that, and the process, it's what's driving your technology. So
Mhm.
I will pass it on to Bassel because I want to hear your thoughts on this because look, hardware is all day long conversation, but we can definitely talk about like how people can benefit from understanding the process. Technology will come no matter what that technology that they need, right?
Yeah, I mean, so there is a huge footprint about these large language models. And you were talking about ChatGPT. I've been trained since September 2021. Don't know any new data, right? We get this message. Well, why is that? Because the training, there's a lot of cost that comes up from that, but also that CO2 emission and energy consumption is through the roof, right? And that's why now we're seeing a different move with the open source community, like that completely embrace large language model. Like you have Vicuna, you've got Llama, you've got different models that are coming in. They're smaller in the number of parameters, and the idea is, okay, I can fine tune them on specific tasks. They become very good. They're not as good as ChatGPT that know a lot about a lot of things, but they're very specific, and that way you can actually run them, some of them locally on your machines, which is great, right? I don't have to have a lot of power from the cloud or servers racks or what have you, and then I can tune them internally. So we're seeing a
Wow.
big move towards that, but definitely, as the arms race continues now with all these large language models, and we're talking now, when we talked about GPT 3.0, we're talking about 175 billion parameters. Now we're talking about, and it's rumored, I don't know if it's true or not, we're talking about in the trillions of parameters in GPT-4. Nobody really knows the exact number, right? And what does that mean? What we're doing machine learning, it's matrix multiplication. So you talked about NVIDIA, right? We're talking about GPUs and TPUs. It's all about, AI does only understands numbers and vectors, right? And it's doing multiplications, dot products, and things like that. That's why you need that specialized hardware. I think there's one point, Asif, that you brought up also. We're so used to having things instantaneously. But when we're generating stuff, I'm not just searching for something. When I do a Google search in 0.02 seconds, I get a million links, right? But if I am reading a document and then I'm creating a summary and then translating it to another language, there is a lag here, right? So how do we create this specific hardware to get that inference or prediction or generation very, very quickly? And there's a lot of work being done over there. But also, how do we do that? We talk about using AI responsibly. How do we create hardware for the AI to be responsible towards the environment and sustainment? And that's a huge topic of research as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot more sense because it seems like the models that we were building is just how fast can we build a model? They built this huge large language model. It looks like a centralized model, and it really makes sense to, okay, that's great, but to be able to conserve power, you have to have decentralized or smaller models that really can leverage that model, but they can do smaller processing and really, you can save energy. That makes complete sense. I mean, I mean, I didn't even know that was, that was how, I mean, for the most part that everybody's developing their own AI, smaller processes, smaller models, but you don't know how interoperable they're going to be at the end. How much can they exchange information and work together? And that seems to be the future.
So that's Lucky, you bring up a great point. So there's this really great library on GitHub. It's a framework, really. It's called LangChain, that now has taken the large language model by storm. What does it allow you to do? It allows you to do exactly that. I can go in and I can connect to any large language model, whether it's an open source large language model or held by a private company like Cohere, OpenAI, or Google, or anybody else, right? They each have their models. And what you can actually do with them is it has different functions. So it has a function which is a model. You can tap into any of these models that are out there. Then you have a function in there that allows you to build chains. So I can basically connect one model, create an output out of it, create a prompt template. Like everybody understands prompting, like when you ask a question and you get an answer, right, in ChatGPT. But you can create a template. So for instance, I can create a template to say, hey, somebody enters the name of a book, somebody enters the author, and hit the button, it will summarize it, as an example, right? So these templates allow me to use kind of like variables in order for me not to hard code things, so I can generate new things every time, right? So and then you can create those different chains, and they can have memories. Memories basically is kind of like the contextual conversation that you have with ChatGPT, and it remembers the context. You can do the same thing. So now it remembers the context of that. And then what you can do something which is called agent, going back to the movies, right? So Agent Smith from The Matrix, right? When we watch Agent Smith saying, okay, I need to fly a helicopter, downloads it and then comes in and flies a helicopter, right? So I remember when I first saw that movie, I'm saying, oh my God, that's so crazy, right? We actually, this is happening right now, but it's not, the agent is not physical, it's an AI. And soon, once they have robotics attached to it, we are going to get there. I have no doubt about it, right? Mm-hmm. So the agent basically allows you to, for instance, ChatGPT is only trained till a certain period, doesn't know anything new. Well, I can, make the AI run in the wild. So I can say, hey, now you have Google search. Now you have Python REPL. So basically you can write code and execute the code, not just because right now you can put ChatGPT, write you a function Python, but will execute the results of that. I can, add Wikipedia. I can add Wolfram Alpha for mathematical things. And then instead of me being prescriptive and saying like, when I go into ChatGPT and I say, summarize this book, and based on this summary, can you find other things? And then we go back and forth. I can give it an objective, right? I can tell it, for instance, and I think we talked about that earlier, hey, look up the movie Titanic. tell me what year it came to the movies, and then give me the square root of that year. So if I give it access to Wikipedia, Google, Wolfram Alpha, you're going to see it say, okay, I'm gonna look it up in Wikipedia. It's gonna type in Titanic the movie. It's gonna get the synopsis of that. It's gonna find the year. Oh, I found the year. Now that I have the year, I need to do the mathematical calculation, which is the square root. Oh, I have Wolfram Alpha. I'm gonna use Wolfram Alpha for that. And you see that chain of thought, how it's going, and it's gonna do the square root. But I didn't tell it, go open this and go use that. It already knows these things. So this is where we're headed, and just to cover it, why this is exciting and so dangerous at the same time. So Jeffrey Hinton, who's known as the godfather of AI, and was a long time with Google, recently quit Google.
Yeah.
And why did he quit Google? I mean, to give people why is he so important? So in machine learning, the learning part was invented by Jeffrey Hinton. There's the back propagation algorithm, which basically allows you to change the weights of the different neurons in order. So think about it like the hot cold game when we were young, right? When we would say, hey, you have somebody blindfolded, if they get next to you and you say hot, if they're away from you, you say cold, right? So you're kind of giving it information. That's the same way back propagation works, right? We change the weights a little bit and we see, is it getting closer to the result or is it getting further? If it's getting closer, then great, I keep on going this way. If it's getting further, then I need to reverse. Like it's going on a gradient descent, and then that's back propagation. Mathematically, that's how it works, but I'm not going to get into the detail. But the idea is, this is the man that invented the learning in machine learning. Okay, literally, he's the godfather. So why did he quit Google? Okay, here's the interesting part. So we've all been thinking about AI as one specific thing doing one specific thing at a time. And he didn't say it this way, but it reminded me of this. Since we're all Trekkies here, remember cyborgs in Star Trek? Resistance is futile. And you know how when a cyborg knows one thing, all the other cyborgs know it at the same time? So if I learned something, Lucky, you would learn it automatically, and so would you, Asif, and vice versa. In biological neuron, when I learn something, I learn it. You guys don't learn it, right? I may discuss it with you, but you guys don't know it as well as I do, and vice versa. But when we're talking about artificial neurons, and I have now, instead of one bot, 100 bot, 1,000 bot, 100,000 bot, 1,000,000 bot out there, I can optimize on a large objective. So say like I want to consume all the energy in the world. I want it to be in a area. And now I have all these smaller bots that are optimized on a sub function goal of that bigger function goal. You specialize in water. You specialize in solar energy. You specialize in electricity. You specialize, etc. So these, I'm going to call them weak learners. And that's the same thing like when we do ensemble with different models and we put them together. And these weaker learners learn something. As soon as one learns something, it's available to everybody else. Everything gets augmented. And you can see how when we start building those things together into that major function that we wanted to do, whether good or bad, because who knows what people are going to do, then it becomes very quick and very powerful. And that's why when people say that artificial intelligence will never going to be as good as human, no, it's going to be a whole lot stronger, a whole lot faster, a whole lot smarter. So anybody out there who thinks that, oh, us humans are always going to be, you know, the smartest, most creative one, I think we are totally wrong about that, because we are just at the cusp. We're not there yet. I'm not saying today we're there, but like when we had our conversation 4 or 5 months ago and nobody thought about generative AI because it's been out for a while. Right? Ian Goodfellow and Gans have been there for since 2014. But look what happened in the past 6 months. When these things start coming together, you're going to have leaps that are get us closer to advanced general intelligence, because now I kind of like jailbreak. It's like jailbreaking your iPhone. I can work on any network. You're jailbreaking the AI. It can work in any place, and you just have to give it the tools for it. And as we build those tools, and we're gonna start with ChatGPT, you're gonna start seeing them as plugins, but you also have them programmatically through APIs. They're coming to all the large language models out there.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's scary. I'm going to go ahead, Asif. That's scary, isn't it, Asif? I mean, what do you think?
oh,
You got
well,
all these
Lucky,
connections
tell me
now.
this, right? Tell me
Oh,
this. Tell me this. Usually, Lucky, I'm a very optimistic guy when it comes to AI. I'm like, you know, but look, Bassel, you did something very important. You changed me as a person just by having this last 30 minutes of conversation because I, well, you know how people put like fear into you? Like now the fear of AI is in me. It hasn't been here like the way that I'm feeling. Like if you're listening to this episode, you can see my face. I'm like containing my excitement, but at the same time, now I'm scared. I am because I have never heard anybody put it so well, especially in a movie reference, right? Because like when I think about like Matrix, I was just like, silly gameplay. But when you think about Matrix from layer 1 to layer 7 of OSI model, and then you think like layer 7 is all we see, but we don't see layer 6 and 1. And layer 6 and 1 is as real as anything you have ever experienced in your life, right? All the hardware has some layer 1 to 6, and then all you see is just a monitor. You don't care about what's behind the keyboard, right?
mhm.
Um, and look, this is why you need a subject matter expert. This is why you need a subject matter expert like Bassel to break it down to the point that look, we're just talking about large language models so far. We're not talking about foundation model yet. And the foundation model includes computer vision. Foundation model includes all your sensory cortex, like tactile. How are you able to touch things and do it properly
Yep.
without breaking it? And how what Bassel just explained that XAI for next 10 years of any innovation that you see, explainable AI, the XAI is the go-to AI for any AI developer. Because okay, let me put a history context behind it. When you're developing software for the last 30 years, you had no need for machine learning. But as you develop software more and more, you're realizing, well, your software just are becoming a Django piece, right? You take one software out, all of a sudden the whole software collapsed, right? All the software collection of the Django collapsed. But now that you have software development and then you're thinking about machine learning, you have to start incorporating machine learning into it because software alone is only half of the feedback loop. In order to close that total feedback loop, you need to continuously take that data that the software produced, reintroduce that data, and create more data with this old software data, right? So you have that full feedback loop when it comes to AI machine learning. And where I'm going with the software analogy is that you have thought, well, AI is not really that old. Well, AI is so old at this point that we are already talking about XAI, that explainable AI, and the necessity of the explainable AI. Because without that explainable AI, without that XAI, we are doomed to repeat what we did with software, which is to become a Jenga piece that we don't know how to optimize it properly, right? So I have a little bit of fear right now. So I think I'm probably rambling on about what I just heard because like I've never been explained it that way. and I always tend to
That's
resist that idea that like that cannot be true. But way the boss explained it, it like left me stuttering, right? So now let me tell you this: what I mean by software, where we've been and where the AI development needed to happen in next 3 years, all the software development that has happened without AI machine learning capability will have to be redesigned, redeveloped, and redeployed and continuously monitored rather than to say, we'll keep fixing those patches of bugs that comes up in software issues. No, the next level of software that you have is all AI machine learning based, but that's already old news because in the fast moving world of AI machine learning, you already have to have the necessity of explaining what that AI will be able to do and how it's able to go about and doing it. Because if you don't have that AI to have a checks and balance to say, how can the humans stay in the loop of that AI process or AI decision making, AI decision augmentation? It's the only way to go about it is through XAI. And XAI, in my opinion, is the only guardrail that we can actually, like Bassel said, it's not just smart; it's much, much smarter than you. And the reason it's smarter than you is because it's able to hold its attention on a specific topic for so long, and optimizing multiple other AI to focus on multiple things and attention that is split into multiple levels and multiple direction, but still maintain that attention by using memorization. We need to be able to track that because if we're looking at one AI like computer vision and getting caught up in it, that's a bad news. We have to have that ability to say, computer vision, what else are you seeing? What else that I need to see that you are seeing, but I'm not able to understand it?
Yeah.
Right.
You can
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you
just
bring up a great point. It's
Go ahead.
okay.
sorry. Go ahead, Lucky.
Oh no, Bassel. I was gonna just what you guys said. It resonates with what everyone's hearing. Like, for example, not hearing, but a lot of the news that you're getting, like recently, Sam Altman, from OpenAI, he's saying the exact same things that we're saying, and but to take it to the next step, Bassel, I just had an epiphany, or I didn't end up throwing myself always outside the box. I'm an outside the box thinker, but one of those things is anything AI learns now, you can just say it's learned it, and then now all AI at some point, whether it be a neural net or a shared net, now we just call it a shared net. I don't know if I've created something new, but a shared neural net at some point, the interoperability, once it's learned, it's there. So we don't have guidelines, we don't have policies. How do we police? So AI is almost right now, it's the wild west. It's growing, it will be whatever it will be, and we have no control. As at some point, that's almost the point of, I mean, we have some, we're developing it, but what it is and what it will be, we don't know. So what do you do to control that? At some point, do you make a police code, something within a central repository that says, hey, you can only do this or you can only do that, and set guidelines? At some point, regulation will have to make something like that.
So there are ways. I mean, there are, like, if you go use ChatGPT right now, there are no controls, right? But OpenAI has a partnership, for instance, with Microsoft, right? And they have their APIs. You can use it through Azure over there. And they create kind of like a layer of governance that allows companies to decide, first of all, whatever the models that you have access to can only be trained on your data. They don't go outside, your sandbox environment. You can also put controls in there, what you can and you can't use, what are the rules of engagement. So I would say because there aren't any universal AI laws, like, we have the AI Bill of Rights by the White House that came out. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. And the AI Bill of Rights it's not binding legislation. So these are, we want transparent AI and we want this, but there is no repercussion for that. Like, if you don't do it, you're not going to get fined, you're not going to get sued, you're not going to get, like, you can still get sued, but you like, I guess legally you cannot be charged. So every company, I think, has the opportunity to work with, and obviously I mentioned Microsoft and OpenAI. There are others as well, so I'm not making a plug for them, could be anybody, but there are this level of governance that you can add in for every single company and make a decision of what makes sense to your business, because every business is different. You can't say, my business can be different than yours, your government agency may be different than the other one. So you have to have, it starts like, kind of like doing community of practice and work groups and grassroots. So you're going to have people from different parts of the organization, not just AI people, right? AI people are just one small part. The business people, the technical people, the non-technical people, everybody has to be part of these conversations, because it literally affects every single person, every job that we're going to be doing. Everything that's coming into the future is going to be based on this. And the reason why, and I know we were just, I want to go back to what Asif said on the point. We're talking only about large language models, but really now we're talking about multi-model, talking text, video, audio, everything's going to be combined together. The reason why language models, so I don't keep on saying large, because there are language models at the end of the day, are so powerful, because there's a big paradigm shift. When we started using computers, if you all guys remember, and I'm going to show my age, we would use DOS, disk operating system, or even like DEC machines. I'm talking on personal computers. Back then, there was no UI. You would have to learn the command, kind of like, like you're doing, if you're a programmer, you use the command line interface, right? And then at one point, we got a UI, whether it's Windows or Mac or what have you. What the large language models have done, it changed the paradigm. The language model is the new interface. It's no longer your UI, what I'm seeing on the screen. And when I say by interface, it's really profound. I just wanna really elaborate this point. So for instance, as I mentioned, you can use LangChain to do things. I can use, for instance, LangChain to do a Python REPL. What does that mean? It means that I can tell it, hey, write a program that does XYZ. It's not only writes the program, but it executes the program. Meaning, so imagine you work at the VA, right, Lucky? And
Yep.
the VA, I think we deal with veterans. A lot of the things that we try to do for them is we try to provide them great health service, and therefore we're dealing also with a lot of claims and paying TPAs and things of that nature. Well, imagine instead of you trying to having teams and teams of data scientists looking through your data and creating reports, you as a VA executive or manager in a specific line, you can say, you know what, show me, and I'll tap in their face, show me the claims by region 1, region 2, region 3. Tell me which are the top 10 highest one and which one seems anomalous to you that doesn't look like anybody else. All of a sudden, it goes writes the Python code. It creates the visualization. Because now we've pointed it to the different databases where we have this information. That's why it knows, right? Remember when I talked about the agent, you can use the agent for your own data. It's gonna write the code, it's gonna execute the code, it's gonna create the visualization, and that's it, right? I didn't have to go through an agile process. I didn't have to put a user story. I didn't have to understand your requirements, right? I didn't have to put it in production. I didn't have to do testing. All of that is done for you. So what I'm saying is we are just at the infancy of where this is going. Language model means an interface of computers that has changed forever and will change forever because of it.
So I must continue the excitement that I'm hearing from Bassel coming out, like oozing out of Bassel, right?
Wow.
Because I can tell you that everything Bassel is saying is what you will see in GPT-4. And when I say people, process, and technology, the process used to be the lengthiest part of any technology development. That process has shrunk to 0.1 at this point. Like 99% of it is gone, because that process that used to take so long, that agile process, that whatever project management process used to have to say, people have an idea and we need to develop the technology, let's put this process in place. You need to do data acquisition, data pipeline, data engineering, data modeling and training, testing and validation, then deploy, monitor and trigger, right? That's just something that I've memorized. That's not going to happen overnight if we did this 10 years ago. That data acquisition piece and the data pipeline to data engineer's table, the laptop, would have been your years and years worth of process. Now with GPT-4, Sam Altman is not focusing on your language texting and a capability to find an answer or where the cheeseburger is. I don't know how to make a good cheeseburger, right? No. Sam Altman's GPT-4 is all based on that process to say, if you type in a prompt to say, I need to train a model for VA's capability on paying out VA disability and process a claim, what do I need to do? Press enter. If the system is already not configured, it will tell you exactly how it will be doing it. And then if it is configured, right, like just the way the Microsoft 365 Copilot is configured, where it knows where to go for looking for data. So if you give it access to your not OpenDrive. If you give that Microsoft 365 Copilot access to your OneDrive, it will go into your OneDrive and will go to your email. It will check through all your connections that you have and create a well-articulated Excel sheet for you. But now you put that on GPT-4, what you will see is from a single prompt, it will go look through all your databases, provide you with data acquisition, provide you with a pipeline to the data engineer, do the data engineering, do the model training, and I don't want to go any further because
Asif, you're exactly right. It can do all these things, but then we go back to what's important, right?
Yes.
What's important are two things, right? How we approach a problem does not change with AI. You still need to understand what the pain point is and what are you trying to solve. Forget about whether I use AI, I use by hand, whatever the case may be. That doesn't go away. That is a fundamental process. So people need to understand and need to be, ask the right questions to get the right answers in order to point the models. That's one. Number two, that doesn't go away is your data quality. Now, AI can do all of that stuff, but if your data is not up to par, guess what it's going to spit out for you? Bad results.
Data.
Right?
Bad data.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Garbage. So I can point it to everything that you said, but if the data we have poor data quality issues, then the result is gonna be really bad quality as well. And actually, it's gonna amplify the problem, right? I also think that if you want to stay within the veterans care, right, and VA specifically, well, we have a lot of locations where these happens, and some of them are rural areas, some of them are in the city, and things of that nature. Well, now I can use it to create new designs to change these spots in order to have, hey, how can I reconfigure, for instance, the physical place so I can take 100 veterans every 30 minutes, for instance, right, to do their test and checkup. How do I generate different designs in that? So it can become a human AI interaction in order to create a better workflow and process, right? When we talk about people, I'll have the AI help me so I don't create bottlenecks. So I don't go from a 4-lane highway to a 1-lane highway, and then we're all stuck in traffic. Because really critical, the people that basically fought for our country and put their lives on the line and probably are injured because of it and have a lot of other issues, we need to make sure that their experience is seamless, as frictionless as possible, right? So that's really important. We don't want them to drive 3 hours and then wait for 4 hours and then wait 3 weeks to get a result and then take another month to get a reimbursable, right? All those things we need to have a better system for them.
Yeah, I think the that reminds me of, okay, you still have the problem of muddy, clear as a mud data, like as in human sees it, but system will not be able to make sense out of it because only I know what that data is because I made it.
Correct.
You'll always have that people problem still. And another problem I think I want to point out is that, you know, oh my god, I just had like a whole train of thought just disappear from my head. But I think when it comes to the technology, that prompt engineering, right, that's what you're pointing at, that how do you ask that right question? Because if you have a little bit deeper understanding of what the hidden layer is, right, the rabbit hole that you would get sucked into once you start talking about that hidden box neural network is that, wait, hold on a second, this neural network is worthless if I don't understand what decision science is. And
Yeah.
your decision science capability will always pull you into the rabbit hole of like, did you ask the right question? Because
Yes.
no matter what your data is full of bias, and sometimes your data is just dumb as a brick because you don't have the right data set that you cannot own. Somebody else owns it.
You- you-
Somebody
you-
else has it. And that prompt engineering, the asking the right question, I mean, it's just not a career field anymore. That is the key source of your success for any life cycle that you're about to jump into.
Yeah, I think we are, and we should be. Please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. I think we're a lot harder on trying to understand how AI comes with stuff that we do with humans. For instance, right? When you said, hey, you introduced me earlier. Hey, you said, hey, Bassel, somebody who knows a lot about AI and all that kind of stuff. Great. You didn't ask where I acquired my knowledge. How come I know all that stuff? So when I'm giving you information, you're taking it for face value based on my experience, my education, my know-how, etc. Right? You're not saying, okay, Bassel, you answered this question this way. Go back now and tell me how did you come up with this answer, right? It's like we're trying to find everything. Like when you talk about the hidden layer, it doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned what are all the knobs and dials. They're important in one sense, but not important in another sense. Meaning, if I know that the result is correct based on historical information, how it got to the answer is not as critical as how it's going to predict on the next answer, right? I think that's another aspect. I think yes, we want to have insight into how it's coming up with these things and how these prompting chain of thought is happening. That's important. But I don't have to go in and figure out like, well, what's the vector? What's the numbers? How does that vector looks the other vector? I think that gets into basically gets you into an area that doesn't give you high return on what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And when you're involved in a table full of decision makers and the stakeholders and end users, right? Not all decisions has to come from the decision makers that we title them as decision makers, right? This decision has to be very well brainstormed, very well written, very well articulated, and very well discussed, right? Because at the end of the day, you end up chasing a life cycle of AI machine learning development based on a wrong question. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And you can, and honestly, Asif, you can use AI to help you formulate better questions. So that's something I use all the time. I like, for instance, ChatGPT. There's something really interesting. I don't know if you've used it. Act as, right? Act as a marketing expert. Act as a writer. Act as a data scientist. And the reason why you want to do that is because because it trained on so many things. You want it to focus, right? So
Wow.
if they act as this, it's gonna look at the information it's trained based on that and really zero in on that. So sometimes if you give it a math problem, it may give you the wrong result. But if you tell it you're the best math person in the world and you can solve any problem, you give it the same problem, it will solve it correctly. So the idea of focusing, we talked about focus, right? We can only remember 7 things plus or minus 2 things. Even our AI has to be focused, and that's the skill set. That's where we get back to the prompting. So we get the AI, and then you can say, okay, now I want you to help me write a better prompt. And the way you're going to help me is I'm going to give you a prompt, and then you're going to ask me question to even get more details to create better prompt. And you're going to stop when I type in quit. And I'd say, are you ready? And it was going to say, yes, I'm ready. And I put in my prompt. I don't know how to learn French in 3 weeks, for instance, right? Let's take a silly example like that, because nobody's going to learn French in 3 weeks. Believe me, I've been in French all my life, and I'm still learning till today. so let's just say, hey, it's like, hey, lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, right? Everybody's favorite. Hey, can I lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks? No. All right. So it's gonna start asking you, okay, well, what have you done? How much French do you learn? Start to ask you questions, and you're answering. And based on that, it's now formulating other things. And then when you say, okay, I'm done or quit, it's going to create a prompt now that's very relevant to, maybe your educational background, experience. Have you traveled to Paris? Do you have friends who speak French? Have you read French books? Whatever the questions are. And then it creates that prompt. And then you grab that prompt and put it in there, and then it answers. And that's how you get a better prompt. So use AI to get better prompts. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, I've noticed back in all my testing with generative AI or ChatGPT that, it originally with the 3 and a lot of generative AI that, yeah, it's cool. It's awesome. But again, it comes down to, wait a minute. There's moments where you have hair-raising moments, and then you're like, wait a minute, there's got to be something about this, and then you change the prompt, and you're like, okay, it's not alive. Or with generative AI, where it's beautiful, the pictures it puts together, and you're like, wait a minute, humans don't have 6 fingers, and what's up with that other leg? Why is the leg distorted in the wrong way? You start to notice, okay, wait a minute. As much as we think that these technologies are fantastic, you guys hit it on the head. It's the data. The AI, it's doing its whatever it was designed to do, and then the data. Then that's where the data matters. Is it, you start to develop a bias, or at some point, as much as we think that AI is finite, it's not. We're going to have years and years of tuning, but we know that it's here. And from our last conversation, we were trying to figure out, how far are we down the road? I thought I was at work. I thought I was another year before AI was going to make it into my office. I'm beating AI back right now with a stick, saying, "You can't have it. You can't have it." And okay, you can have it, but you can't. And it's one of those things that I talked about it earlier. On the medical side, we're still trying to find roles for AI. How AI can help us. On the security side, we're trying to figure out how AI can help us analyze these large data sets, and we can apply statistics to it. But when it comes to us, the human piece, AI is hitting a home run right now. It's driving the fact that we can communicate with it. That's it. We needed that. And that's
Lucky, you bring up so many great points. I think one of them is, let's just look at this conversation. The way we are communicating right now is on a podcast is very different than we're offline communicating, us 3 together, right? Also, what the model has been trained on, like when you sit down with your friend and talk, or you sit down in a business meeting, you may speak differently, right? You may act differently. You're still the same person. I talk to my, 18 and a half, almost 19-year-old daughter differently now than when she was 5 years old, right? Because it's changed. I talk to my, my in-laws differently than I would talk like with Asif, for instance, right? It's just so think about, well, these language models are trained on what data? Stuff that's on the internet. Okay, is it real? It's real. But when I text you, that the communication is different than when I write a blog post, than when I do a podcast, than I am in a business meeting or in a family meeting, right? So the tone, how I talk about things, how I explain things, etc. So even though we have all these models trained at different stuff and the data is quote unquote correct, it's just going to give you an output in the same vein of the data that it's trained on.
Exactly.
And then you combine them, that's when you get the 6 fingers and 7 eyes and different things that you're mentioning.
And my thought about those images is that I think they're doing it on purpose. They want to put out these images with distortions in order to keep the image from being actual image that will be freakishly very accurate, right? Maybe for paid subscription reasons, right? Hey, did you pay for it? No, because with paid subscription you get better images. I mean, look, we started off talking about people, we talked about process, we talked about technology, but ultimately we've been just talking about the people the whole time.
Mhm.
That's what it is. PPT, right? It's like rap song, PPT. Are you done with it?
Hey, I'm gonna put it in Chat GPT, see if we can come up with a nice lyrics. Somebody perform it.
Are you done with PPT?
Because
Write me a rap song.
because it is about people at the end of the day, right? Because we are wielding these tools. That's the bottom line. How are we going to wield them? How are we going to use them? And how are we going to do it in a very responsible way? You cannot, funny thing about legislation and what's right and norms, you don't train employees to say, you know what, don't come in a flip-flop and shorts and shirtless to the office. That's common sense, right? Like so what I'm saying is you cannot put a rule for every single thing. There is no rule in my office that says, Bassel, don't put your foot on the conference room table. It doesn't
Don't
exist.
eat your burgers.
I guarantee you it doesn't exist anywhere. Now, if I went to my office and my CEO is there and I put my feet up on the conference table, that would not be a very good look. Probably I would lose my job. I'm assuming, I don't know. But I can go back and tell HR, well, it's nowhere, it's never written anywhere. Show me where it says that. So we cannot put a rule for everything. That's the challenge, right? Like so there has to be quote unquote some common sense. And I used to fly fish. The name of the fly fisherman that I learned from, very well known in the Pennsylvania area, his name is Lefty Cray. And at that time he was in his 80s when I learned from him. Wow. He says, son, common sense ain't that common. and I was like, what, in my 30s back then. That really stuck with me. And I'm like, why do you say that? He's like, well, everybody comes out here and they want to match wits with the trout. Well, what if I told you the trout has 2 brain cells, and if you don't catch one, what does that say about you?
Well, when we're talking about common sense and who needs it and how we employ it and how we are able to, dissect that common sense, one group of people, which I'm part of, and I am very glad that I am part of it, because military veterans, we are trained on common sense like nobody's business. I mean, really, if you go to boot camp and you see some of the things that happens for 6 weeks and you realize, wow, everybody's not thinking like me, because everybody has a different sense of commonness, right? As in, I'll tell you, when I was in the boot camp, some of the things that I do today, I'm not going to talk about it in a podcast, because back then it was normal to me. Then I realized, well, that's not normal. That's not common either, right? You shouldn't be doing that, and somebody had to beat that out of me, not physically, but verbally. and that's necessary. So when it comes to veterans community, this podcast, we tend to discuss military veterans because we think military veterans training and military veterans ability to dissect this common sense is the ultimate step 1 to step hundreds of AI machine learning. We have to have common sense throughout. And I think military veterans community bring that to the table very well. We're able to articulate, we're able to stand up to our ethics and moral and our concerns for people's safety, privacy, and security. we can speak up, and we are able to bring that to the table in order to say, no, that's not common. We have to do what's common sense approach and make that safe, secure, and private AI. So that way we're not just doing what's good for the quarterly income, right? So with that, let's go around the table and say, ay, what's your last thought?
Lucky, you want to go first?
Yeah, Bassel, I'll save you the best for last. Bassel, thank you. AyAyAyAi. I feel this was a great podcast. I'm glad we finally got it recorded and have you on video, my friend. I wish we could have you on every week, or I wish
Every
we
week.
could talk to you every week. You always bring so many truths, so much knowledge, and you always expect to learn something new. So anyhow, thank you for joining today on this Sunday. And I'll leave it up to you now, my friend. You have
All
the
right. Thank you so much. First of all, AyAyAyAi for you and Asif. Thank you for bringing me on board. I feel this is really a brotherhood, not just a podcast for me. And your mission resonates with me. Veterans is very, very important and near dear to my heart as well. It's also what I work on at Guidehouse as well on a regular basis. Um, it's a very exciting times, and also at the same time, we also have to be very judicious and smart of how we approach things. You could tell by my excitement when I mentioned, LangChain and the things that you can develop, but we also have to be very careful. Like we have to, measure twice, cut once. We should not take things for granted in terms of security, training, and governance. I think these are the important. That goes back to the people part, right? If we train people on how to secure things and make sure we have good governance in place and have the right training, I think that there's a lot we can do. And I think we're really just at the tipping point of what's coming, especially when we look at multimodals, not just large language, especially when we probably start thinking about AI and augmented reality at the same time, kind of like Robocop. You start seeing things and things pop up at you and getting information. We're going to start, I know that metaverse was a dirty word, but we're gonna be having a like live metaverse, I believe, in a virtual reality and AI agents. I think we're moving very, very quickly. I think the next few years are going to be super exciting. But I think everybody should have a voice. Everybody should be concerned, whether you're technical or not technical. And I think we can build great things together and build things responsibly. I can't wait to see what happens next. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Always be on lookout for AI machine learning with AyAyAyAi. See you guys next week.
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.